Giants and giantkin have been featured in some of the most iconic adventures from D&D's past and have a classic appeal that is hard to deny. Giants are elemental-aligned, dangerous monsters with a complex culture, ecology, and society, and their size should never be taken for granted. Giant Jarls, chiefs, and kings have fundamentally different value systems than smaller humanoids, and when ran as more than a sack of HP in a club, they can pose a real threat. Fee fi fo fum. Today we discuss giants on WebDM. Oh god, that was awful. That was just bad. All right, Jim. So we're going to talk about giants today.
They're one of the most iconic monsters in D&D, and in a lot of ways, there's like Dungeons and Dragons and giants.
Right.
You know, one of the more iconic adventure series, the Against the Giants three-parter. They're on the cover of the Player's Guide. They're really iconic monsters, and yet so often they turn out to be a big bag of hit points and a stupid attack and go down like chumps.
Yeah.
And so
I can personally attest to that.
Right. And like so often, how many times have you been in a fight with a giant and that giant lasted more than one round? Or maybe a round and a half.
Round and a half, yeah.
After the party decides to focus fire on them.
Right.
And so, on the one hand, they are this iconic monster that has a great sort of society and a complex culture that surrounds them. They're more than just a monster in the woods.
Right.
But they're also, mechanically speaking, usually kind of boring, a little one note, and are not always the credible threats that their reputation and sort of imagery suggests that they would be. And that's kind of where I'm at with giants.
Yeah.
See you guys later.
Right. Or it can swing the other way, because if you have too many of them,
yes,
then, I mean, you're one crit away from...
There
goes the cleric.
There goes the cleric. So they are dangerous.
Yeah.
And if left unchecked in a say a big fight where you have maybe, let's say, a couple of giants and then some of their minions, maybe some giant animals that they keep as pets, just kind of a typical mid-tier D&D fight with a couple of big centerpiece monsters and minions that you have around them. If you don't pay attention to those giants, if someone doesn't tie them up or take them out immediately, then they will run rampage over everything. They're tall enough to grab wizards that are flying out of the air for the most part, or hurl something at them. I mean, they do a lot of damage, but it's just that when the party decides this giant's got to go down, that giant's going down.
Well, yeah, I mean, going back to the term, the action economy.
Right.
Depending on how many guys you have on the antagonist side, there's only one giant and there's 5 PCs. Yeah, it's not gonna. They get their 1 or 2 attacks.
Yeah, and then that's it.
Yeah, and the PCs unload on them.
Probably got a debuff on them. Maybe something even worse. Maybe they're held or restrained in some way. There are certainly builds where you can grapple with giants.
Yeah.
And that's another good way to kind of keep them in place and immobilize them. Say a Goliath that's enlarged. A Goliath barbarian that's enlarged is going to be able to wrestle giants to the ground and keep them in place.
Yeah.
And so I think that the big deal for me is like taking these really iconic monsters that are elemental themed. They've got a strong connection with D&D's history, and they've got this hint of a complex culture, and making them something more than big dumb monsters.
Right. So okay, what are some ways to do that?
So unlike other big dumb monsters, say dragons or more powerful demons and devils, giants don't have a lot of options of getting out if they need to.
Yeah.
If they need
mobility.
If they need to GTFO, they don't have a lot of options. There's cloud giants who can fly away.
Right.
And really that's kind of it. Even for creatures like hill giants or Ettins or Fomorians, where they're sort of the first time the party's going to encounter them as say 5th, 6th level, as a boss monster, maybe later on as a couple of more set piece encounters. If things start to go south for those monsters, the DM can't say, okay, they teleport away, they fly away, they disappear in a cloud of smoke. They're once engaged with the party, they are stuck. If that's going to be the case, then is there a way to make that stuck with the party moment memorable? Can we turn those encounters into something other than just whittling away at a bag of hit points and hoping you don't get hit by their giant 66 club?
Yeah.
And so maybe making giant fights more like Shadow of the Colossus style encounters, where you have to defeat this monster in stages, in order to defeat it as a whole.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like take a tendon out, bring it to a knee.
Take a tendon out, bring it to a knee. That lets you climb up on its back with an athletics check. Maybe you get advantage because you're back here, but now you're vulnerable to being grabbed. There's just a lot of things that you can do to make the fight more interactive. Maybe there's some, some other characters flying around the giant, distracting its face, trying to shield its face from arrows that are being shot in its eyes, while the barbarian and the fighter take out its ankles and knees.
Yeah.
That's what a giant fight should be. Right. It should be a team battle. One of the things that I always think of when I think of giant fights, and it's nowhere near fantasy, is when the X-Men fight the Sentinels.
Yeah.
It's the X-Men have to work as a team to take down these robots.
Yeah.
And I feel like it should be the same with the team of Dungeons and Dragons adventurers. They've got to all hit them at once. But at the same time, like we just said, usually that means they go down pretty quickly. So it's kind of drawing out that moment of teamwork into something that lasts maybe a bit longer than a round or two, but is not so much that it dominates the entire fight.
Well, I mean, say with stone or hill giants, why not give them a little bit more AC, because they have a little bit more natural armor,
right,
or something like that. That could maybe extend the fight a little bit.
Or maybe damage reduction to non-magic weapons or something. Yeah. Something that ties them more into their elemental theme. So for me, I'm looking at, say, hill, frost, and fire giants. And I'm thinking, like, they are strongly elementally themed. There's a lot of potential there to bring in spell-like abilities or special attacks to make them more than just a giant humanoid that happens to have a red beard and an obsidian sword. Yeah. Or wears cave bear furs.
Yeah, fire giant should maybe do some fire damage.
Fire damage, right.
I don't know.
Or frost giant should be able to summon a blizzard or something. And so maybe you have it where an individual giant is like they are in the monster manual.
Yeah.
Maybe you boost their HP a bit just to make them a little bit tougher, or you give them some kind of damage reduction, or maybe increase their AC. But then let's say you get 5 hill giants together and all of a sudden they can cause an earthquake or summon walls of stone. Or you get a war band of fire giants, and if they march on the town, that town's just going to start burning because that many fire giants together just starts bonfires.
Right.
Like I said, the frost giants can summon blizzards, can freeze people in blocks of ice. Groups of them can. So if you can isolate one, you've got the powered down monster that's in the monster manual. But as a group, you've got to deal with the extra abilities that come with having a bunch of elemental giants in one location. Yeah, that'd be pretty great. Because we've had a few run-ins with giants. A few run-ins with giants, yeah. They make some appearances recently in both Tyranny of Dragons and the Underdark. What's your take on the giants that you've encountered so far?
Well, most recently, I threw a storm giant. At the party that was coming to rescue your and Emma's character's souls in the Spelljammer campaign.
Right, correct.
They got sucked out from a deck of many things, had to go into the plane of water.
Storm Giant's natural opponent.
And I threw a Storm Giant at him thinking like, well, they're only 11th level and it's like a CR like 13 or 14 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, it might be a little bit much. Yeah, it lasted a round and a half. Now, granted, I did roll up a Giant Slayer for one of the fighters.
Right, so there was a Giant Slayer sword.
So it was a Giant Slayer sword in play.
Right.
And boy, let me tell you, did he just rock that thing's world. But yeah, it was just kind of like, it got its lightning attack off once. And it hit somebody else once, and that was it. Yeah. And it was like a round and a half, 2 rounds, and the thing was just dead.
And it's dead, and now it's zombie fodder for the Necromancer in the party.
Yeah, and then the Necromancer in the party decided to raise it, so they had a zombie Storm Giant.
Right.
And that was, it was pretty epic. But yeah, I even had, there were some marrow and some twisted merfolk that were in and around, like fighting them also.
Yeah.
And they took their lumps, but when you're getting hit by a 1d6 sword
it's just not
from
that
a marrow,
impressive.
You're going to ignore that and go after the giant that could hit you for whatever it was, 60, 10, or 66, or whatever. Yeah, I see the point. I wish we would have had this before I did that, and I would have changed it a little bit, because I was just worried, because, I'm fairly new to DMing, so I try not to look too far ahead.
Yeah.
I don't like to read ahead.
Right.
I don't like to metagame.
Right.
And so it was only at that moment I was reading before the adventure, and I was just like, I was worried.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have been at all.
No.
At all.
And that's what I mean by giants having, they look good on paper, and they've got a good reputation, but somewhere in practice, when it comes time for the dice to hit the table and the players to take the field, that giant's going to go down. But at the same time, knowing that, you can use that to your advantage as a DM. So if you have another monster that you don't want the party to worry about, throw in some giants for them to worry about.
Yeah.
You've got a high-level wizard that you don't want the party focus firing. Maybe he's got some giant allies that are going to be at that battle that are going to draw fire, and that gives them, if we figure that each giant lasts a round and a half, then that gives 3 rounds for the wizard to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And so using giants, knowing that they're party magnets, that the players are going to focus on them, and that they're going to go down quickly, you can include them in encounters specifically for that purpose. Or you can have an encounter where you draw it out. Maybe you take a giant's hit die and you maximize its hit points, divide those by 3, and each 3 of those stages represents ankles and knees. Now it's down on the ground. Now you're going after the soft vitals as it's trying to roll around and smash you.
Stomachs and kidney.
Yes.
And you finally get it down where it's one hand on the ground. And finally get to stab it in the neck or in the head.
And that's the final third of its hit points. And maybe at each stage it grows more and more desperate, and its attacks, maybe it sort of gets an extra attack as it's just lashing out at the party.
Or it gets give it reckless attack from the barbarian.
Give it a reckless attack from the barbarian. And that way the fights become more like 4th edition fights, where there's the monsters have the bloodied condition, where certain abilities come into play after half their hit points or a third of their hit points have been taken off. And it number one, can break up a fight. It can help draw out a long fight and make it, by having different stages, instead of having like a 7-round slugfest, you've got a 2-round where this is what you want. Maybe use an athletics check to try to grapple up the monster's legs, and then the next round you're trying to do a different type of action. So it adds some variety to the fight.
Yeah, because you mentioned Shadow of the Colossus earlier. God, that game's amazing. And if you could make an encounter with a giant D&D like that,
right,
where you're having to just climb up it, and you maybe want it to grab you so you can get up on its arm,
so
get up here.
Up there.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and so maybe instead of having giants that are 15, 20, 25 feet tall, you start having giants that are 50, 75, 100 feet tall, and really play up the fact that they are so different from you because of their size, that their value system's different, what they care about's different.
Yeah.
And these giants are just massive creatures that require different solutions than just, I hit it with my axe.
Yeah. If it's like Attack on Titan, you just need to hit him in the back of the neck.
Get him in the back. Get the little chunk out of the back of the neck.
Yeah, you gotta cut that sliver. And it'd be freaky. Because you're just food at that point.
You're just food at that point.
You're literally just a field mouse to them.
Right. I mean, that also touches on the other aspect that giants play in the world, and specifically in the D&D game, in that they make good background monsters.
Yeah.
You see a troop of hill giants marching across the horizon, and do you flee? Do you observe them? Do you not? But they're there in the background to give both a perspective of the world, the scope of the monsters involved, and also a hint of the party, like, hey, one day those are going to be your enemies. One day you're really going to have to worry about that tribe of storm giants that are causing all those shipwrecks and hurricanes.
Yeah.
But for now,
unless what if you went and talked to them? I mean,
exactly.
Like, do you have to fight these giants all the time?
Right.
Because we've discussed this many times. Sometimes it's better to role play it.
Sometimes it's better to role play it.
Try to make amends. Try to make friends.
Absolutely. So maybe instead of the hill giants have been raiding the shepherds and whatnot for the last few seasons, and there's no way that the Highland clans are going to be able to stop these hill giants. So it's up to the party to go in and broker a peace deal. They've got to fight through the monster-infested lands that the hill giants live in. Maybe there's some touch-and-go encounters in the beginning, but they reach the steadfast of the hill giant chief and negotiate a peace treaty or something.
Yeah.
And that way, giants become another race and culture that gets brought into the Dungeons & Dragons world alongside dwarves, elves, halflings, etc. You also have giants, and they are a part of the world that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I'm really looking forward to with Storm King's Thunder.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I haven't read too much on it yet. Again, like I try to stay away because I don't foresee me running that.
Right. And even if you don't run it, I think or even if none of the group runs it, I think just looking and seeing what they have in store and seeing like how are they going to flesh out giant society and giant culture and make it something that the players can engage with. That's what I'm really curious about. I'm also excited about runic magic and the possibility of players becoming giants. But those are kind of a sideshow to how can they show us different ways that you can use giants and center an adventure around them.
Other giant kin. We've
yeah.
kind of talked about, you know, the big giants.
The big giants.
No
yeah.
pun intended. Actually,
Right,
it was
right.
very intended. But like Ettins,
Ettins,
Cyclops, you know,
yeah.
some others. Just you know, touch on those. Like
Ettins, Cyclops, Fomorian, even ogres and trolls, all these kind of, they're the giant subtype. You can follow the same kind of paradigm for them and the same sort of rules where you try to keep those encounters memorable by thinking up different ways for the party to interact with that monster other than just I walk up to it and hit it.
Right.
If it's a troll, what if, I mean, the trolls surely must know that fire and acid are more harmful to them and would potentially seek out ways to negate those things.
Yeah, live in
what
a
if,
swamp.
What if a warband of trolls somehow acquired fire resistance in some way? Even if it's just covering themselves in waterlogged hides that keep them from that keep the fire from burning them.
Yeah. Or make a deal with a local druid
Make a deal with a local druid
who
to
constantly cast, you know, like create water around them, or
Yeah.
that's all they do, you know.
something that keeps them moist and limber, so that the fire and acid doesn't harm them.
You said the M word.
Yes. So I think that those are the kinds of things that you can do with giant kin. You can also incorporate them into larger encounters with giants by just calling them all giants. And that way there's different hit point values in play, different attacks, different abilities. And instead of trying to like differentiate them, maybe you go the attack on Titan route where they all just kind of look like giant humans.
Yeah.
But the special abilities they bring to the table, what they can do, those are the things that differentiate them and kind of throw players a curveball whenever 12 trolls show up or whatever, and they don't look like the long-limbed, rubbery-skinned green creatures from the monster manual. They look like something completely different. Maybe they're composed of mud and allied with the hill tribes and represent a more elemental giant.
Yeah.
And the mud just reforms itself whenever you hit it.
Yeah.
Or maybe the Etten is a demonic giant that worships Demogorgon.
Yeah.
That there's connection there. Or the Cyclops it's not a Cyclops, it's the Cyclops.
Yeah.
And this is its island, and you're on it, and now you're food. Those are the ways. What if that cloud giant is you have to climb up a beanstalk and get in that cloud giant's castle and find out that there's a whole city of other cloud giants up there, and they just live in the clouds because it's Forgotten Realms or D&D world. Or
and you finally kill that cloud giant, and then they arrest you and take you to cloud giant court.
Take you to cloud giant court.
Watch Rick and Morty.
I mean, it's a good episode because it shows you how you can incorporate a larger society into an otherwise random encounter, I guess.
Exactly. That's exactly what that is.
But yeah, so those are all the different ways that you can then change up giants, think about them differently, incorporate them into your campaign in ways that they're not just big orcs.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, fun time.
Yes.
So once again, thanks for watching WebDM. Go ahead and subscribe. Let us know in the comments. Head on over to Facebook. Like us over there. Tell your friends about us. Come on back next time. We can't wait to see you. Have a good one.